Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gym Owners Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Stone. Over there is John Fairbanks. How you doing, John?
Hello.
So the CrossFit Games is just wrapped up, and we're going to kind of cover what this means, what the CrossFit Games has meant to the fitness industry as a whole, what it meant to CrossFit affiliates, some of the things I think they do very right, some of the things I think they get very wrong, some of the things I think the fans who are excited about are wrong, some of the things I think the fans are upset about, they're wrong. The ups, downs, in, outs, the good shit and the bullshit of the CrossFit Games, as well as some other big fitness news that's coming across the entire industry this week. So this week's kind of just a look into a couple big news items, big happenings in the fitness space this week. If you don't give a shit about CrossFit, you'll like this one too, trust me. So stay in, you're going to dig it. Make sure before we get started, make sure you go to Gym Owners Revolution Facebook group. That link is in our description. That's where we run the blog posts and polls. We have a bunch of nice engagement. We have good quality information for gym owners to help other gym owners make their gym ownership life a hell of a lot easier. If you want to get in the Gear Academy, which is our business coaching product, that is at gymownersrevolution.com. You have questions about that, you can email John and I at yourmom@hackyourgym.com. Let's get started. Follow the show at Gym Owners Podcast. Follow me at Tyler Effin Stone, Tyler EFFIN Stone, and you can follow John at
JBanksFL.
All right, let's get started. CrossFit Games. I don't follow it anymore, like the ins and outs of the athletes. It's one of the things that I, as a person who trains, as a person who's done fitness, as a person who's competed in sport, I find that following other athletes is lame and is a waste of our time. First off, I think it's weird. I think it's much like an adult man wearing another man's jersey to a game. I think it's strange. Like, you let your wife see you do that, guys? What are you doing? Even worse when these are like 5'5" fitness guys who you're fanboying over. Aside from all of that, I'll talk a lot of shit because I'm giant and they're hobbits, but there's a lot of it's truly some really, really impressive stuff that goes on with there. I think it is not the truest test of, not the most ideal test of fitness or whatever you want to use, but it is in a very fucking cool competition with some really incredibly impressive things going on. I didn't even know what was going on because it got all jammed up with COVID stuff. Remember, there was almost happened like one time at the end of year one. You know what I mean? It was offset in when it was happening. Like, remember that? Like, the open was shifted. And so now I think this is when it finally fell into like, this is normal times, I think. Now it's back on ESPN, which is how I knew it was finally going on, aside from some of the people I follow voicing support or complaints for some of the things that we're seeing. But seeing it on ESPN, somebody had posted this on Instagram, and they said, I don't think people understand how significant it is for CrossFit as a brand to have the games on ESPN again, even though it's long and tedious and a lot of the stuff the average population doesn't understand. This person saw something, I think, in an airport or a restaurant, and my wife and I, we were sitting in a sports bar on a Friday night or whatever, a Saturday, just sitting there, and CrossFit Games on TV, and there's a bunch of goddamn jacked hobbit psychos walking on their hands. There was one of the events was like walking on your hands, stop while on your hands, do a handstand push-up, keep walking, another station, handstand, free space, like free standing space, and then keep going, and then go upstairs, downstairs. It's just this crazy, it's just nuts, right? It's just but now when I'm watching this as a person who's owned a CrossFit affiliate and tried to teach general fitness, that is fucking crazy. Like, you're at a point where like, this is so specialized, it's almost stupid. Yeah. But I totally respect the skill set. I get it. But that level of specialization is really incredible. There are feats of strength, that fitness that you really don't see. It's hard to describe, right? Really what that is like. Short of watching, like, in my opinion, the like Olympic level gymnastics is crazy. You go to like collegiate level gymnastics, those people are the best athletes you and I will probably ever meet. You know what I mean? It really is crazy. But seeing it on ESPN is a big deal. Now, when I had opened my affiliate in 2016 or 17, it was right that big groundswell. I know the games had just kind of picked up a lot of steam. There was a lot of social media attention on CrossFit as a whole. And that was why I essentially wanted to open a CrossFit affiliate. I was training in a CrossFit gym. I believed in the methodology as it is written, not necessarily as it's performed, nor as it is competitively competed, but I do believe in the methodology still for general population. the brand was very visible. The brand was on the rise, and you would see these incredible feats to the point where normal people, it would inspire normal people to go, holy shit, that's such a very far away standard of fitness, right? But it sure as shit looks like fitness, right? It does. It is. Now, as a CrossFit affiliate owner at the time, the CrossFit Games and the CrossFit HQs, the overall branding of the games athletes and things like this, their marketability, their social media presence was great free advertising. It was also the number one thing I had to diffuse when I was selling new members. It was the best and worst thing. There's so many people like, I could never do that. I don't want to do that. And it's like so many people that would have benefited from the way that we go about it, because what we did was, constantly varied functional movement at a high intensity with fucking reasonable perspective on risk versus reward. Jesus Christ, guys. But a lot of that gets lost in the mix, and the overall reputation is that's what it is.
That's what it is. That does tell you how popular it was.
Yes, but that tells you how popular it was. So like if you got to diffuse some of that here in the Midwest, Susie Q homemaker who's got 20 pounds to lose knows not anybody's name, but knows what CrossFit is, and knows that what it is one of the terms that they use, forging elite fitness. And I think that's fantastic. But I would also like to forge some pretty like average fitness for some people that have really elite fatness. That's because you know what I mean? Like, because what I wanted to forge fitness from fatness around here. And that's a very tough sell when a lot of the branding was elite. And what they're showing is elite, and what they're showing is enviable, in my opinion, very enviable.
If you have that personality.
Yes.
Right. Or it's cripplingly so far away that it's like, oh my God. Like I remember, because it was when I was playing college football, CrossFit was being talked about briefly. So this is 2010, like 2008, 2009, 2010. And I remember just the attitude was like, who the fuck do these people think they are? Like, this isn't a sport. Like Correct. This is working out. Like it was an element where coming from sports, it was like, we lift weights to do the sport. Mm-hmm. Like the idea that it was a sport was so an afterthought. But I remember when, what was it? College or Die? Not, remember that like, it was like a comedy sketch thing that
either College Humor or Funny or Die.
College Humor. Yeah. That's good. I mixed the two. But I remember like, I think one of them did like a CrossFit parody where someone was like dying. So they're like, oh, it's CrossFit. And then they're like being douchebags, but then they're like throwing up, and then like their fucking intestines are coming out of their mouths or whatever. But that's how much it was in the ethos of like, oh, that's what it is. So for fitnessing, it was like, oh no, you just push yourself till you die. And people are like, oh God, I don't want to do that.
But the brand is becoming more visible again. I think it's great. I think that is great for the general population. I think they need to see that. I would love to see, though, equal parts marketing. I don't know how much money they make off the games. I think their big target is to make money off of the open and then whatever partnerships and brand partnerships they have. I don't know what like CrossFit just pulls in for throwing an event that takes a week and all the bullshit that has to go with managing it. I'm sure they're leveraging a lot of volunteers for the execution of a lot of that stuff. But I think that's really good. I think it's great for the industry. I think it's great for the industry as a whole, for people to be inspired by fitness, because sometimes when you are seeing everything in the context of sport, it's a bit daunting, right? Just watching football doesn't inspire somebody to get in shape, but watching somebody do physical things with their shirt off, shot in a way with a good pump, you know what I mean? Like that, it works. And they do ESPN, they do a great job. CrossFit's media team has always done a really good job, I thought, of making things look cool and making it look professional. Now it's a multi-day event, so it's nearly unwatchable, short of just, you get it. If you're watching it, like if you're following it, you're crazy, right? But if you just get in and something's on, I'll check it out. I always love tuning in at the deals. When I it works out great for me. I end up tuning in at the last day, the last couple men's and last couple women's heats. So it all matters usually. And you're like, oh, cool, down to the wire, and you get locked in. But where we were sitting at, there's other people watching it around. And it was on amongst nothing else. They did a great job putting it at a time of year when there's nothing going on, John. Yeah. This is one of the timing things that I think, if I got to give them credit, there's no football yet.
No.
NBA's over. NBA is so over that they're showing preseason basketball games on TV.
Or like the Summer League. I'm trying to have you give a shit about the Summer League or something like that.
You're not care about Summer League. You're just never going to do it. And so I think that's a pocket that they've fallen into, that, boy, they better stay in this time slot. Just stay in that fucking rules. They are pulling out of Madison this year. I don't know where they said they were going to go, but I think this is the last year in Wisconsin. Sounds like they won't be going back, which I get it, right? I mean, there's just a lot fewer opportunities, and it's probably very complicated for a lot of people to get there. Like, host it in put it in fucking California. You know what I mean? Where the weather's nice,
that people know.
Yeah, put it where the weather's always nice and where there's people. Please, fit people too. Because you're going to go there, you go there in Wisconsin, and there's just going to be a bunch of people like, oh, gross. All the people with abs are in town now. Now, but I want to talk about some of the things that I think. Here's what I've seen lately. One of the topics that's come up, and it's a sore subject, and I don't know, my defense of CrossFit in this department is probably going to go farther than CrossFit would even defend themselves here. And I'm going to offend a lot of people that are well-meaning. Maybe if you take this as offense, you're nuts. This is just my opinion on the issue. There's been a lot of stink being raised about how CrossFit is handling the adaptive side of the CrossFit Games. CrossFit runs the CrossFit Games. They also have a team. They also have masters. I think they have fucking masters teams. I think there's sub-masters, and it turns into this convoluted mess with standard competitions already that makes it dumber than even powerlifting from a dilution standpoint. Like, nobody gives a fuck if you won sub-masters bench only in the WPF. Fuck, like, it sucks. Nobody cares. It's too diluted. We're being too specific. Like, I am the fittest guy at my exact height and body weight and age right now in the world, probably,
hands down.
And if not, I can gain or lose a quarter pound, and then I win that title again. So like, I just don't. Yeah, and so, but, and I don't follow all of this. I know some very well-meaning people that I correspond with regularly that have a lot of vested interest in it, and they care a lot about it, and I think they do mean well about it. Talking to you, Tyler, and your fiance. But what I see, but they're well-meaning, and they're like, I think they're handling this wrong. And there's some of the issues, and I don't follow them all thoroughly, because fundamentally my break comes before this, and I'll explain. But basically it was like all the categorizations, it's not enough. Like, if you're a single amputee, lower half, above or below the knee, each one of those is a separate category. One arm versus two arm, above or below the elbow, whatever. Like, there ends up being, and now I may be diluting it a bit further than it needs to be, but you understand what I'm saying. The logistics that it takes and the amount of inclusion, buzzword of the day, the amount of inclusion that you're seeking, in my opinion, is not the CrossFit Games' fucking job to do. Because nobody gets fucking mad at the NBA that they're not completely operating a shadow league, a partner league for, they do one for women, right? To just, here you go, we'll pay for it, whatever. But now they got to do one for wheelchair basketball. And there has to be an NBA for wheelchair basketball. And then there needs to be an NBA for one-legged basketball. And they all need their chance, and they all need to be in, and everybody needs to be in. And then are we doing, and I don't know this, but like, I know there was a big scandal that had come up where somebody was told that at that point from year one to year two, that essentially, like, with their disability, they weren't disabled enough to qualify or something, whatever it is. And that's a big stink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't fucking know, man. You know what I mean? Like, these are all decisions that should not be needing to be made, frankly, when you're trying to figure out the 1, 2, and 3 fittest men and fittest women in the world.
That's the whole point of the whole goddamn
conversation. Now I've had to create this entire subcategory for you, and I'm with it. You should be able to compete. But does the fucking NFL need to make you a league too? I don't think that that's fair to put that on a company that has the money. By the way, they got the fucking money. It's not about the money. It's just that you're now creating this untenable, completely divergent set of competitive standards and execution models and programming and equipment setups. Like, for the people that and I will say this, I do believe that regular people below the competitive are the ones that keep the CrossFit brand alive. And they are. So you do want to appeal to regular people. That's why you have the open, and it's why you want to have adaptive divisions in the open, and I'm with it. But do all roads need to lead to the CrossFit Games? Fuck no.
Yeah.
So and that's, I haven't heard anyone say this either. And that's what sucks, is I just don't think it, like, because CrossFit's not saying, like, I don't even think we should be doing this. And that's what I think when I see it, is like, I don't think you should do this. I don't know, man. Like, I don't think those people Are you as fit as the people that are on the podium? Are you in the conversation? Well, probably not, because you have some limitations. Great. I think that there should be, I would prefer, here's when I talk solutions. I wish somebody from up and within that community, you can solicit CrossFit for partnerships, for funding. The same thing. You can use those same inroads that they're using right now, like for use Rogue and all these other stuff. Like you can get partnerships and money and put the adaptive games. And it doesn't need to be CrossFit branded, and it doesn't need to be run by CrossFit. Or Christ, if you run it at a different time, run it and have it really be, and you handle the headaches, handle
Yeah.
all the logistics of it, handle all the subcategories of it, see how the eyes are. Is it going to catch the eyes? Is it going to be worth the money to sponsor? In my opinion, it probably just won't be, because it's really specialized. It'll be very great for the families and the people competing. I think you can inspire lots of people in their adjacent communities. Are you going to get these giant public eyes on it? No, probably not. Maybe you showcase some of these athletes at the games. When you do, you recognize their wins after or at the game. I don't know the
Right.
solution for this necessarily, but I do not believe that them having to run all these concurrent tiers based on ability is nuts. I don't believe they should have a teens division. I don't believe they should have masters. I kind of think the team CrossFit games is the fucking most boring shit in the world to watch. And I don't even think that should be there, because I think it sucks, dude. It's just a way for like kind of people who are a little washed out and like can't quite compete on their own. And like, yeah, we'll just get a team together, all stay fit, and they all kind of partner up from God knows where, and they put it together and they go win whatever piddly little amount of money they get from it. And I just don't, I get that part of it, that it's cool for those competitors. But again, I've said this about strongman. If your sport is for the competitors and not the spectators, your sport fucking sucks. Okay. And that's a thing that powerlifting has always got wrong. It's a thing that strongman has tended to get right. That it's like, yeah, man, I don't know, go break your shit. Let's get serious. Yeah, Bill Kazmaier, we're flipping over cars today, and we haven't thought about putting the parking brake on them, or what happens if they don't get all the way over. And some people are going to get crushed by cars today. That's happened at the World's Strongest Man. But I'll tell you what, I remember that, and I watch that shit, and it's awesome. It's really awesome.
There's an element, right, of inclusion to eventually you're up your own, like you end up becoming the villain. Right. We see this even like in the woke culture too, right? Eventually you go so woke that now you're racist again. It's like, what the fuck that's happening?
Yes. Yeah. And so I think that and I think that's what's happened here. It's like, we want to be, one of the things there's a guy, Trevor Bata, he's a guy out of San Antonio. I traveled to interview with him at Massanuttons, he's an amputee. He had done tons of fitness stuff, and he was really inspired by Aldrich Logan, who's another amputee who had competed in fitness. And anyway, so we were new with Massonomics. I had free airline tickets, so I flew down and spent a weekend with him, trained with him and stuff, and had a nice conversation about his injury and what happened. And at that time I said, you do this, you're just ripping this shit in your garage, and you're like really pushing yourself really hard. And for what? I said, you could really, for the same inspiration you got from him, you could go out and compete. And he did. He went out and started doing some competitions, some partner competitions, adaptive competitions. And I think he felt the same way, that the benefit that he had from having done that was he got to share the gift of that inspiration with other people. But he was competing in adaptive competitions that chose to do this. And part of me feels like CrossFit's hand is being forced with this, and I could be wrong. Their PR people will argue with me, and they're going to say, oh, absolutely not. We do this willingly and blah, blah, blah. And we don't think it's convoluted or a bit patronizing or just unnecessary or dilutes a lot of our efforts that go into putting into the games to make sure that anybody and everybody gets to compete, is what it kind of feels like. And I was like, I just don't think that that's the standard you want when you're trying to build a professional sport.
What's interesting is what you're talking about, like that pressure is like even Peloton has an adaptive division now.
Yeah.
So like their instructors have an adaptive, it's so in the ethos of, again, having these things that are there in front of everyone.
Do you know the first adaptive fitness inspiration I ever got? This is really funny. I think it is the what's the Horton guy? Was that Insanity? The DVDs, right? Was that some Tony Horton?
P90X or whatever.
P90X. I think it was P90X, right?
Yeah.
In the background of P90X, there's a guy. That guy had one leg. He was doing it on like a peg or a blade or something. And I was like, what the fuck? That guy looks really familiar. And I was like, that's the guy from Super Troopers. It's Rabbit from Super Troopers, the rookie.
What?
And I looked into it, and it is. And he is an amputee, and he was in fucking P90X.
Eric Stolhansky?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I gotta
okay.
look this up now in case I was like Eric from P90X is Rabbit from Super Troopers. There you
Yeah,
go.
what was it like doing P90X with a prosthetic leg?
Yes. And so, by the way, this dude never said anything about it ever in anything. I mean, never. I never would have known he was an amputee ever. And he's like an actor and a damn funny one too. And then he's just anonymously in the background of this workout DVD. And it was really, really funny. But anyway, that's all things aside from. But I've wore the subject out. I think that the worst thing that's going to happen is I think people, when they hear this, they're going to go, what are you saying? These people shouldn't get to compete? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they don't need to be built the biggest platform in the world when there isn't really the demand to watch it. And I think it's patronizing to do so. I also think that they should be given a platform to inspire other people as well, because there's plenty of people in their situation. And I know people in those situations who have a hard time getting motivated, had a hard time realizing that they can do these things. And one of the things that I used to do when I was younger, we worked for this camp for kids that would do two different 2-week blocks every summer. And so I work with them even in my adulthood. But what we would do is these camps, we set excursions, events every day for these kids with very differing abilities, different situations, from physical to mental limitations all the way across the board. But what we did with that thing was made sure that they could do it, whatever it was. And so when you're a guy like me, like I'm a big, huge, strong guy, my job very often is to like, okay, well, you want to swim? You've never thought to swim because you're paralyzed from the neck down, right?
Sure.
Fortunately, we got big guys who can get you in the water, make sure you don't drown, right? That's what we
awesome.
do. And so you're
Yeah.
just there kind of doing the stuff. Same thing with riding horses. It's one therapeutic horseback riding in that community is fantastic. But a lot of it is, well, how are they going to get on, get off? Yeah, you need some people to make it work for them. But horseback riding, to boat riding, to going tubing, to playing basketball. It's just tons of little things to make them feel like they can do these other things and to give them those moments, right? And I think that is very important. And I know that that's the function that this part of the games is serving. I know that's the bigger picture. But to fucking argue about it when we dilute it down to this, we dilute it down this far. I just think it sucks. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about it that does, like, this isn't a great PR move for me to come out and be like, I don't think these adaptive people should be bothering the CrossFit games about competing in the CrossFit games. I don't know. I think they should be able to compete. I think somebody needs to take up the realm and build that adaptive division up. I think the CrossFit games can certainly fund it. I think if you guys think you can manage it better, definitely do it. And then, but take it off of this platform and do it yourself so that it's you and it's you doing it. Because then, by the way, it's guided by you, not just CrossFit doing it, because if they don't, there's going to be a bunch of people mad at them, and like that sucks.
That's the point you're making. The issue is not the fact that they have it. The issue is that a bunch of fucking people that aren't neurodiverse are bitching and complaining about it. So get the fuck out.
Diverse. Yeah.
Exactly. Whatever that those different diversities and then breaking it apart. That's not the complaint. The complaint is shut the fuck up. If you have a complaint, go fix it, or just shut the fuck up. It has nothing to do with you. So shut your goddamn mouth and stay out of it.
I just think it doesn't belong there. It doesn't belong on that stage, for the same reason that we don't got to worry about at the end of the NBA finals going, okay, well now we've got the one-armed finals. It's like, well, okay. No. But what are we letting people amputated below the elbow compete in this division? Geez, they don't get their own division. What the fuck? And that's the issue, is every request that's being made is to like make it entirely new special tier of competition. And I don't think that that's necessary. But I do think that what CrossFit offers, because you have coaching and you have movement that is truly functional in its origin, not in the execution, but when you're talking pushing, pulling, hinging, standing, pressing, throwing, these things, functional movements, those movement patterns can be baked in and are extremely useful for people who maybe don't understand that going to a gym as a amputee or as in a wheelchair is like, well, what am I going to do? Well, a coach then can teach you, and a coach knows, and they've done a great job, I do think, CrossFit, in educating people. And there's plenty of people within the community educating people on how to coach and how to teach. I had 2 or 3 adaptive athletes in my CrossFit gym. One was essentially from, rib cage down, wheelchair. Had another on one leg and another with just kind of a uh, dead arm. I don't know how to describe it, right?
Sure.
But like in those situations, I need to lean on other people for experience and like how to coach this and what can I do, what can't I do. And I do believe that those varying special degrees of specialization that exist within there, um, I think that that is valuable to have a bunch of people in a centralized community where you can go, hey, I do need to know what someone who is a above the knee, or what the difference is between above the knee or below knee amputee is, and what they can and can't do in this situation, or what is going to be better for a quadriplegic versus paraplegic, what is better with right arm versus left leg, like what can I do, what issues are there with the prosthetics specifically. This is the thing people don't understand, is like the prosthetics very often like are a big issue in the training. That's a primary cause of pain and friction and a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff. That's not, all
injury.
those things don't fit perfect and kick ass. And knowing that though, that's a whole new world. That's an entire new world for a coach to know and coach to understand, and to expect like a competitive organization to have to put this together. I, I don't know. I just don't think it belongs at the games.
But I do like it on the local level, and not to
Yes,
help
I think you have to.
help have a transition to another topic, but it's like the idea of like what differentiates, right, your gyms locally where you are from larger box entities or big organizations that are going to come in and
Yeah.
start gobbling up the market share is your
We have
ability to specialize.
we have a big there's big news in that department coming. I got one more subject to cover here on CrossFit. The CrossFit
Ah.
games. Drugs. Y'all.
Oh yeah.
Y'all. My eye test is not wrong. Almost never. I'll tell you this. I've my eye test. I don't know what to say. There's some. It takes one to know one aspect to it. There's also, it's been long enough in spent long enough in the game, long enough in the industry to see. Your eye test is probably not right all the time. Not you, John, but you, if you're listening. If you're the type of person that's everyone that's more jacked than me is on steroids, or everyone that's stronger than me is on steroids, that's just
Yeah.
you. All right. But I can tell you, I got a pretty good eye for it. And there's some criteria I do use. That's not just the eye test, but if I'm being honest, my eye test has me right 95% of the time. And then usually other data just tends to support it. A lot of these athletes use drugs, guys. I hate to break it to you.
No.
And they're
And I
not
don't
just
don't
using
blame
like
you.
big man drugs. They're not just using testosterone and shitloads of fucking growth hormone and like stuff for pure size. Because while a lot of these people look jacked, most of them are small. So
Right.
you're seeing hobbits amongst hobbits who are simply lean and carry a lot of muscle. A lot of these guys, while some do look very freakishly big on camera, a lot of them, when you see them in person, they look like they probably are in shape when they're wearing a t-shirt. They do not look like that. So take that with a grain of salt. But there is a lot of other substances out there that are used for performance, for endurance. The types of drugs that these guys are going to take are much more likely going to be seen in, say, endurance sports. That sounds like getting popped, like Enduraball or some shit, endurance sports.
Mhm.
MMA fighters, probably very, very similar. If I had to like draft what I would give a competitive CrossFit Games athlete for drugs, it would be, if it was an untested situation, it would be the same as if I were to dope up a untested MMA fighter, nearly. Now,
Our
CrossFit,
Peloton episode will have the exact ingredients that Tyler
yeah,
recommended.
yeah, our Peloton episode's gonna get it. Yeah. Let's talk about drug use within the Peloton community next. Now, I'm not saying everybody's on, some are definitely not. But I'm gonna say there is a large percentage of that field. I don't want to throw numbers out there. I'm conservatively gonna say 1 in 5 men and women, in my opinion, are taking something throughout the year. Now, the issue is they're not doing like like the UFC is doing, which is doing a testing pool where these people are having to get tested year round. They're going to get tested essentially during the regional situation. So like these guys
Yeah.
can dope, they can get a few things, even if it's simply to heal up in an off season, to mend a little bit. So you can run some growth hormone, you can start to build your engine, you can maybe add a little bit of size, but then you got to come off. But if listen, people finish and test hot every year at the games. It happens at least a handful every single year for something. Those people are fucking idiots because they know when the games are. They've known for a year. So those
Yeah.
people are just dumb shits who didn't get cleared enough or something, right? Um, the rest of the year, they're on their own. WADA's not showing up 7, 8 times a year randomly. These guys don't have to report to a testing pool. And for one of the same reasons they don't do that is because logistically it would be a nightmare, much like having to host 25 different subcategories of adaptive games, right? That is logistically just not really viable when we're trying to determine the fittest man or woman on earth. That we have to determine the fittest man and woman on earth with one arm, right? I don't believe that you can test all of these people year round. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Unless you can basically have a pool of who is a professional. Your top tiered people then all have to go into a pool, just like they do in the UFC. Once you're under contract, but then you're under contract. So then you have to start building what I would describe what they tried to do back when, which is like a competitive season, right? Bunches of competitions, and then maybe those contests test, but you don't have to attend all those. And so I think drug use is much more prevalent than you're seeing when in regards to the testing. I also don't believe that they report all of the results to all the tests. I believe they choose who they report to. I don't say anything anyone specific necessarily that hasn't been caught already, because I won't. But some that have. There was that gal a few years ago. This is one of the funniest ones about it. This gal tested positive for MK677, which is it's what I would describe. It's a growth hormone secretagogue, which is essentially it's under the category of SARMs, but it's not truly a SARM. It's one of the few SARMs that you don't have to inject. It's probably the only, because SARMs, if you take them orally, your stomach acid destroys them. So they have to be injected. This isn't technically a SARM, but MK677 ramps up your body's ability to produce growth hormone and then doesn't completely crash you after the fact. So it's like taking a little bit of growth hormone. It's pretty affordable. I've taken it in the past and I just got super water retention from it. It was the problem I had. Like I was just so bloated, like it sucked. And maybe that had to do with, also the Diana ball or whatever else was going on. But like once that was introduced, it was like unbearable. I'd wake up sweaty and my hands were so fucking puffy. I'd be like, I cannot deal with this shit. But MK677, the thing about that stuff is it is the most fucking intensely disgusting tasting thing on earth. Like I can't imagine eating anything. Like, it's a liquid, you put in a dropper, and I would have to drop it in like juice, and I couldn't put it in like a whole tall glass of juice to dilute it enough, because it would make a whole tall glass of juice really fucked up and then hard to drink, because it'd be like 12, 15 ounces. You're just, oh God, it's all gross. So I'd take like a coffee mug, right, up full, and then put the droplets, the dropper vial, whatever, in there, and then take it. Yeah. And even then it was nasty. I would have to chug that, then fill it again with juice that's flavor, but then doesn't have any in, and then chug that and swish it around in my mouth to get it out, right? I mean, just fucked up. It would hang with you. Then you'd have to brush your teeth, like gross shit to have to do a couple times a day, right? And this girl, I don't remember, Abbott? No.
Emily Abbott.
Was she the one? She was the one who got, did you just look that up?
Yeah.
Good for you. She's a redhead. She's nice. I've seen her on interviews and shit. She got caught for it and swore.
5 years ago or so.
Purely denial. Like deny. And hey, I don't know her. Maybe in her heart, she thinks it's true. Her story was that her boyfriend or husband was taking it. And then she must have got it from kissing him once.
Yeah.
And first off, it takes like a fair amount of that to like really get in your system, one. And two,
it's like getting pregnant off the toilet seat.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, Mom. I went to the bathroom.
I can tell you, there's no fuck if you kissed your significant other and taste was in their mouth in any way, you take them to the hospital. You think there's something wrong, like for real. Like there's no,
honey, you're dying.
And I don't know what you guys do in the bedroom. Maybe straight up just spitting in your mouth. I don't fucking know what you're into, lady. But that is, I hate to break it to you, but when they say that, it's like, yeah, okay. Well, you're saying what you need to say, but I don't believe that. And so there's a lot of that stuff denied. There was another girl who got caught with CrossFit for, I want to say it was like something pretty intense. I think it might have been even like, I'm tempted to say trend, and this one might have been around the same era, maybe a year or two before. And she said it was from like swallowing semen of her husband who was taking it. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's how that works either. Like, so
but that's bad props though. Like just go
props, be like, good for you, cheaper. Now, the thing about this is aside from just bringing up these stories, most people who get caught for drugs that aren't like, sometimes you'll get out there and it's like, oh, it's something I was taking. Certainly, yes, submit all your supplements that you've been taking. Submit them and they'll test them, and they will determine if that's even possible, right? They can do that. So you can get out of it. That's what that whole appeals process is. These don't even come up until after the appeals process. So all things have been exhausted in that regard. But at that point, as far as I know, everybody, here's another, every single person that I know who's ever been on probation or parole, who has had to tell the story when they fail a drug test, or even for their employer, right? Who has failed a drug test for marijuana for their employer. Do you know what they all have in common when they tell their boss that it's because they were in a car with somebody who was smoking or near someone who was smoking? Every single person I know, everyone who has ever said that, without exception, 100% of them were lying. Everyone who I've ever known who has used that excuse was lying. No, you pissed hot for weed because you were smoking pot, and that's fine. But that's just, and this is with some of these games athletes and whatever the excuses. I'm just like, yeah, okay, yeah, you were in a car with a bunch of people who were doing steroids, I guess, and that's how this happened. But it is just one of those things that, in regards to the games, at that level of competition, people are going to cheat. They're going to cheat every way that they can. As long as it's banned and they're taking it, I'm not on board with it. If it's allowed, you give me an untested fitness league, dude, that'd fucking be wild. That'd be wild. Like, I'm kind of about that. Like, just pull the testing off and let's just go. Now, I know they don't want to do that because the foundation of the business is general people and normal people. And I don't think you need somebody looking like, well, I know this, but that's part of the issue with this, right?
Right.
So I think it's in the game's best interest to keep it clean. Because making things more impressive on the top end, on the elite fitness end, doesn't push the needle forward for the average person. That the female snatched, 285, 286 pounds, in the games, in a competition after 3 days or whatever. That doesn't, the difference between that and if she hit 340 just doesn't,
I guess
nobody gives a shit, right? Nobody cares.
Because strongman and bodybuilding.
Like nobody knows. Like, you go to strongman competition, the general population doesn't know the difference. They just see a car getting lifted up. They just see a stone getting lifted. It's entertainment value. So nobody cares if these people are a second faster in the general population. It doesn't build the brand much anymore. So it only is a benefit to those specific athletes. So I think it's in the best interest of the CrossFit games and the CrossFit HQ at CrossFit as a brand and the affiliates for the sport to remain clean. Because every single one of these things that comes up, and now it makes it look like, oh, those people are all jacked up and on the juice and whatever. So if you want to make an adaptive separate CrossFit, go for it. And if you want to make a sauced up CrossFit, like, I'm with it too. Like, I'll donate, man. Let's go. Let's fucking go. I'm with it. I just want to see what's possible,
Yeah.
Now, so that's just what I have to say about that, I guess. I think that the sport is being a bit protective of the stuff by keeping some of this stuff pretty quiet. And very often I do think that it seems like they go after athletes that they just kind of particularly don't like. I'd be willing to bet if you really were liked a lot and were very popular, that your results will either get double checked or your appeals will get drug out for a long time and nothing sneaks out about it. That was one of the things about, I think, the way it was at least structured before. Now, I don't know this for sure for, say, this year, was that when a positive test was issued, they only reported it back to basically the people in charge of the games. And then they determined where it went. This isn't like third-party testing that gets publicized by a third party.
Do you know how we handled it in college?
Nobody got told.
Well, it got told. So the school, so NCAA would come in and they would drug test a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And you fuck that up, it was like very, very hard to save you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're going over top of anyone who can protect you.
Yeah, it just is like, like the governing body has shown up. They are drug testing, but we got drug tested every month, every 2 months. Like, there was a quota, right, that they needed to meet, but the school drug tested. So if you were a piece of shit when you played and you popped positive to the schools, oh, they will happily kick you the fuck off the team. Like, you just gave them all that they needed. But if you were a baller, you just got a boot this week. Like, you're injured. You can't play. Like, you're injured, you can't play. So that was how it was handled. And it just was like, dude, you've got to tighten up, because the whole idea was like, you've got to have this under control to not pop positive, because when the governing body shows up, we can't save you. And it just was like, oh, well, looks like so-and-so's injured for the gimme game that's on Saturday. But
Right.
if we're playing LSU, if we were playing LSU, there was no boot. It just was like,
Yeah.
you get your shit figured out,
Yeah.
but we need
Yeah.
you on. We need you
Yeah.
playing.
Double down this week. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, it's not just, and I think the way CrossFit handles this is a little bit like that as well. I don't think all of it, but I think there's an incentive from a PR standpoint for them to treat this very much like when an employer has in their employment contract with people that, like, we can drug test you and we can get rid of, at least here, we can fire you if you test positive, right? And I've worked for companies that, instead of laying people off and paying unemployment for the winter, right? What they do is they would go through and they would do random drug tests that week. Not for all the guys, not for all the guys, by the way. They would do right by the guys who are good, but you get some dickhead who is late and gives you headaches all the time and no shows once or twice a week all the time. Comes time for layoffs to come, that guy's catching random drug tests this week so that he gets booted out the door.
I love that.
Yeah, because you just know. So at the very least, that's one surefire way for you to cut bait without having any recourse coming your way. So that's kind of the wrap up for what we had from the CrossFit Games and what it means to the people. But I want to cover one more big piece of news here. John, we got time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nike's making moves into the fitness studio space, a lot of moves. And I'll tell you one thing or two. If you know a thing or two about Nike, they got deep pockets and they can roll. So a lot of you guys, if we're, they're using the term, the buzzword, boutique gyms, running boutique fitness studios. They're going to start opening them up. They've already established pricing. They've already established what the fulfillment is going to look like. These are going to be boutique fitness studios, $99 a month, flat membership. There will be two separate types, I believe. I don't know if these were, I don't think it felt like these were two separate types of classes. It seemed like these were two completely separate types of studios and gyms. One was going to be Nike training studio and the other was going to be Nike running studios. Training is going to focus a little more on lifting weights and things like this. The running is obviously like you do fucking math on that. But first off, these are going to crush. These are going to do very, very well. They're very approachable. I think they're going to work for Nike because Nike doesn't need to make a lot of money off the fitness. Nike can get involved whatever they need to on the real estate side of things, whatever that play looks like for them. The other thing is they will be selling Nike apparel. The big thing I like about this is in these locations, it gives the opportunity for Nike branded, locally focused apparel to be sold. Apparel, shoes, all this stuff. Now it's not just going to be Nike stuff on the shelf. It's going to be, Nike,
Wearables.
Nike, you
know
what I mean? That just apparel as well. The wearable fitness technology is going to be big as well in there. But it's going to be, for those of you who are squirming, it's classes. There's nothing about this that I saw in there that indicates that this is open gym, free gym, or anything like this. Everything that I saw said classes, like running classes and cardio classes and fitness, more of a weight training focused stuff, meaning it's going to be a bit on the fluffy side. And by fluffy, I mean, like, not for me or John to go do. Like, you go get a nice little sizzle and get a lead. I think it's going to be but the experience is going to be fucking crisp. This is my thing. Like, Nike branding is awesome. The lighting is going to rule. All the equipment is going to be top notch. It's going to be really cool stuff. The music's going to be great. It's supposed to be, upbeat, up tempo stuff. I think it's going to crush shit like your YMCA classes and stuff because it's nearly approachable from a pricing standpoint. And it's just so much more premium, like so much more. For those of you that did run group classes and don't do anything else, I think one of the principles John and I teach quite regularly that will keep you afloat as this type of model. Nike won't be the only one doing this in the long run, by the way. 5 years from now, mark my words, there will be more people more big brands doing the same thing.
Or similar things.
Yeah. And because they recognize the need for everyone, there's just so many people that are hungry for fitness, and Nike can make it approachable. I can't do $100 membership because I don't have the money to open up and float the overhead and to maybe lose money for 2 or 3 years while I just occupy market share in an still emerging growing market.
If Nike comes out and does this and has success, which it will, do you know how close Lululemon will be to having yoga studios?
Oh, yeah.
Like, get the fuck out. Like, it would be instant.
And so I think there is I wouldn't be afraid of this because I think it's going to let get a lot of people in, and they're going to recognize the limitations of those classes first off. It is
Sure.
simply going to be exercise. That's what I want you guys to understand. And you can always do what differentiates you. You do
Right.
real training. We do real lifting weights, or you do have clubs. You have a more community aspect stuff. It is a bit more social. You're not Nike. Okay. So that's going to feel very good to some people. And so you need to lean into it. I wouldn't sweat it. I think it's a great opportunity for the fitness industry as a whole, though. Because when you talk investors wanting to move in and money and resources starting to move towards these types of projects, that helps you. It really does
Mhm.
help you because it grows the whole thing. If you can get if in your area 2,000 people find their way to fitness this year, to working out regularly, no matter where it is, let's say none of them are with you. You know they don't stay where they stay for the entire duration of their fitness journey. And so then when they find most people don't know what they need or what they want. So they're going to go to whatever they can and hopefully it sticks. And then when they find out what they do want or what their next need is, you're there. But you need more people pursuing that lifelong fitness journey. Nike can fucking make them do it. And I'd be happy to have one in town here. And
Well,
I would
and
not attend at all,
yeah, because
but
it's
I'd,
going to
ha- I'd
raise.
happily compete with them.
Yeah, it's going to raise the tide, right? Like that
Yeah.
idea of like the rising tide, because you realize it's going to be a hilarious amount of money their marketing and advertising is going to throw at
Yeah.
this, right? It's going to be astronomical, and they're already prepping. So when you take a look at this, you can see like they're getting more focused, like they're getting rid of their yoga handle, right? They're like completely dropping the yoga line concept.
Yeah.
They're adapting and changing to where now everything's Nike wellness.
Yeah.
So it's like it's part of like their major pillars of just increasing knowledge when it comes to wellness and rest and training that will get people thinking and talking about it because that's all
Yes.
you need. A lot of times this is the hardest thing for you guys in your community where it's like I just want people to like it's so like I just want everyone to start doing more. So if you just like I said, if they start getting into that world, then they get exposed to it. And
Yep.
eventually people do, they try it, but then they do want something that's a little bit more hands-on. But
Do you know where I would say, well, for sure, 90% of our OG members at Massonomics Gym, like the OGs who started it within the first year, do you know where 90% of them were training before Massonomics opened? YMCA.
oh no shit.
You've seen that gym, John. That is not YMCA people down there. That is not YMCA equipment. But that is where everybody
No.
started. Everybody was there directly before. Matter of fact, we had a thing there when we opened up because the YMCA director got kind of shitty
I
about a
bet
couple
it
of the
did.
things that we had posted that was like, and it was like a Hitler meme video. It was like when their YMCA decides to raise their membership prices out of the blue, right? And anyway, he flipped out and did some, it's like, dude, who the fuck are you? Fuck off. You're the
That's
CEO, whatever,
awesome.
right? And so anyway, so now what we have is if you see on the wall, you probably didn't notice there's a cork board where everybody slaps their former YMCA memberships. Their Y cards
That's
are up
super
there.
awesome.
That's all of
No.
these guys when they were small and dorky, and now they're all huge and jacked. I'm like, problem solved here.
But
But
that this is but God, it's so important though. Like that, I want that. Like if you've made it to minute 47 and you're still with us, it's you need to take that lesson really to heart, where it was the why covered that 80% or whatever it was, right? They covered the majority, which means if you appeal to everyone, it means that people just settle. Like you're the spot that they go
Mhm.
to. So the real key is like that niche down, which Massonomics would have been. CrossFit
Yeah,
would have been. Like these are niche down communities within a larger fitness community. And just like you said, there's a lot of fatness. So think about any of your communities, unless you live in, I don't know, San Diego or some shit. It's like the majority of your communities are just an overwhelming amount of just fatness and low
yeah.
participation when it comes to fitness. You just got to get them into that world because then once people get exposed to it, they're like, I really hate this or I really like this. And then they
Yeah.
start to, it's no longer nerve wracking. I want to start because I'm already in it. And now I'm
It'll
willing
inspire
to
them to
start.
try new things. And this is
Right.
one thing back to even like the CrossFit methodology that I always liked is try new sports.
Yeah.
That being baked into the kind of the pitch of what it really means to be fully fit. Their definition of fitness is regularly trying new sports. And I think that is what is going to happen in this Nike space here is it's going to be these people are going to like lifting some weights. Like, I'd like to just not have it be with loud music and some fit 20-year-old saying, oh, here we go with a headset. And that'll work for some people until it doesn't or until they don't want to do it anymore.
Mhm.
And they're going to want to go somewhere else, but it's going to give them ideas. And at that price point at $99 a month, everyone can afford it. Everyone, like you're talking $40-$50 a month for a standalone 24-hour membership for most places here anyways, at least where I'm at, that are just normal run-of-the-mill stuff.
Yeah.
Double that, but it's in a super clean premium environment that will, I promise you, wow you when you walk in. I believe it will be super clean. It will, I mean, it will deliver on every detail. It I if they're going to do this right, it's going to work for Nike and it's going to work for you and your community. That's what I think. It's going to work for everybody. But it should raise the bar for some of these little details, and it should give you some ideas. But there's a thing that they do, a business like that can afford all that attention to detail and to throw a lot of money at and to operate at a loss for a very long time until it just works because they've got 200 locations, right? Is when you go to like Disneyland, man, everything's fucking clean. Like everything. I mean, everything looks like it was painted 2 days ago. Everything's glossy and polished. And this is what I do when I go to Disney. I look at all the trim. I look over like everything is clean, so meticulously clean. And I think that like that type of experience, you settle in. And as much as I'm not a Disney fan, like you go to Disney and you're just like, this really is a high level operation. Just is. It is premium. And some of the things nowadays, I hear they, fall short on the delivery, the food and all that other stuff. But what that experience is, what you need to take away from that as a fitness owner or a gym owner is like, man, those little details. If your place is like Nike clean all the time, man, like is your floor not like kind of dusty and a little bit? And maybe that's not your vibe, but I always look at that like, is this Apple store, Nike store, Equinox level stuff, and some of that is just attention to detail and not a ton of money. So you can what can you get, what things can you cover to increase your vibe that's not a tremendous investment? And now you can really be like, these guys, it's really clean, it's nice, they're next door to the they're whatever down the street, and they actually teach strength classes and they help me with my nutrition, and I still go do the Nike fuzzy fitness stuff once or twice a week, but I like getting in and being able to lift heavy, or I like going in and get to sit around with this group of people afterwards because the Nike folks just kick us out, and or whatever that is, because you'll have an opportunity to be more locally based, community focused than Nike is going to have their studios be, most likely. But they're still going to crush it. Know this. And there's going to be a lot of hype when they come to town. Don't get mad. I'll tell you this. Don't get mad. Do what you do. Differentiate it, but don't shit on what they do, because a lot of people are going to like this. That's going to be one thing, is you don't got to shit on. Just be different. Be different, and know that some of the things you do that are the same are things worth talking about too. Hey, we got group classes. We do this. We also can help you with this and this, and charge twice as much as Nike does. Then that people won't. But then you got to deliver. Yeah,
and that's a whole nother area of continuing to make sure that. I was seeing somebody talking about this the other day, where it was this anytime you get plugged in any type of consultancy, or you start talking to anyone that's a mentor or whatever it is, they'll push this idea of how much marketing. We talk about a lot of marketing, but it's like, so you end up spending a ton of time chasing leads, trying to get leads, doing all this kind of shit. But those people that are pushing you there, they're not talking to you about fulfillment. And this is why you and I spend a great deal of time saying, like, you have to be good at what you do.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give a shit about your clients. Like, there has to be that element, because the fact is your attrition rate may be dog shit for how long you can keep people, because you're just not any fucking good at keeping people. So like giving them a free gift when they're normally canceling is not going to make up for the fact that you've sucked dick for 3 months and they just want to get the fuck out of the relationship. Like, but like, what about the shaker cup? Like, dude, no. Like, there's so much more to solve. There's one thing on the Nike thing that's going to happen. And I think as long as you don't live in California and New York, you are going to capitalize on this. They are a major brand, which means they are going to go with whatever is popular is going to be what their marketing is going to be.
Yeah.
So however you feel about the most woke topics that exist right now, as you're listening to this, understand that the Nike brand is going to do that.
Yeah.
And if they have members that, if you happen to live where I live, which is a rural spot where you're going to see a little bit more Trump signs than anything else, It's understand that they will, as a brand, alienate people that live in your community.
Yeah. And they're going to be it's going to be a while before they get to you too. So you're also going to have a bit of time before they're in your, like, listen, where I'm at, we ain't on their list. We ain't on their list at all. But also I'll tell you this, that's not to say it wouldn't work here. This is what I'm saying is if they could rapidly scale and they parked one here right now, they would fucking kill it. And I don't think it would be to the detriment of a bunch of the other locations in town. I don't think you get a ton of people moving. You get a ton of new people. Tons of new people get fired up about it. Also, people would just go double. People with disposable income would just do both. So listen, I'd love to compete with one. That's the way I look at it. And so, well, that's what we got for news. We covered Nike. We covered the CrossFit Games. We'll save some of the other stuff for later. Yeah, let us know what you think about this episode. So we just kind of covered some current events. If you hate some of our opinions in the beginning, and I do respect your opinion as long as you're not cunty about it, I'd love to hear it, especially you, Tyler. So I'm going to shoot. I am going to send him a message because they are actually very involved in some of that other stuff, and they are good people. But I've seen it from them, and I don't want to be like message him like, oh, I think you're wrong. I just don't want to force my opinion on anybody. I'm going to tell them to check this episode out because they are good people. So, but yeah, if you think I'm off base, let me know, or let me know what you think could be done. With that situation, specifically on the adaptive side of things, and as well as on the drug testing side for the CrossFit Games, because I think there's some holes to be filled there. So, yeah. So thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Make sure you go to gymownersrevolution.com, join the Gym Owners Revolution Facebook group. If you have any questions for John and I, you can follow me on Instagram at Tyler F. Stone. That's Tyler EFFIN Stone. Follow the show at the Gym Owners Podcast, and you can find John at
JBanksFL.
Thanks a lot for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week.